I'm Dave Pogue, and I'm the Global Director of Corporate Responsibility with CBRE. And first of all, I have to say, I want to say welcome and all that, but there's a gentleman here who reminds me of Ashton Kutcher, who I think it's Steve Jobs is, yeah, but anyway, you'll see. You'll see in a moment when he comes. But, on behalf of CBRE, welcome to our abode. We're delighted to have opportunities to host events like this because it helps us to amortize the rent. So this is a wonderful space, and we're delighted to be able to have you folks here today. I have a couple of minutes to just speak a moment here. First, you're going to hear a number of amazing stories. I was sitting back in the green room, which really wasn't green, listening to everyone, and there's some amazing stories and great accents that you're all going to enjoy. So I'll get out of the way quickly here, but I did have the opportunity a couple of weeks ago to speak to our Global Operating Committee. And this is really the global leaders of all of our business lines from around the world, brokerage and property management and development and all the rest. And the company was asking me basically to describe to them what this all means. What does sustainability mean, and what does it mean for the built environment and commercial real estate? Because we seem to be at the nexus of a lot of these things. So I had the opportunity to go back, and I spent some time trying to succinctly tell the story about where the real estate industry had come and what this means in our industry. And I went back and looked at the year 2000 and fast forwarded to where we are today. In 2000, the United States Green Building Council had been in existence for a few years, but they had not yet certified a single foot. In the year 2000, the EPA Energy Star, they had a program for buildings, but that year was the first year that they gave an Energy Star label for an office building for better performance. There was also CDT was in formation. GRI had their first year, and there were 14 firms that participated in GRI, 14 firms. And things like the Global Real Estate Sustainability Benchmark, GRESB, didn't exist. There were no cities that were requiring any kind of disclosure. For EPA Energy Star, now there's lots of Energy Partners of the Year. None of them are real estate related. And so now we fast forward to the year 2013. 4 billion square feet certified in USGBC. Energy Star announced that they have over 200,000 buildings that are participating, over 20,000 of them are Energy Star labeled buildings. There are more than 500 in dozens of cities, have more than 500 buildings. Our organization has almost 1,500 buildings registered ourselves in EPA. GRESB, that didn't exist this year, we had the meeting for the reveal for their scores 2 weeks ago in this room. There are now more than 500 investment funds worldwide that participate, $2 trillion worth of value. I think it's safe to say that the real estate industry has moved forward and that we understand it. But we're looking for innovation. We're looking for those big, audacious ideas that were spoken about yesterday, because I think our solutions have been kind of small and incremental. And so the real estate industry is looking for big solutions, as are most of other industries. And I think we may hear some of those this morning. So again, welcome to 200 Park Avenue. We're delighted to be able to host you here. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Amy Davidson.
Thanks, Dave. I'm Amy Davidson. I'm the Executive Director of the Climate Group here in North America, and I'm delighted to see all of you and all of you that were with us yesterday. Welcome, and thank you to CBRE for hosting us in this beautiful space, and for you guys not causing a riot for not having the coffee and the food here on time. I appreciate that. So I'm going to be super brief because we have quite a bit to cover this morning. The topic is innovation. And this is really we've got a critical, wonderful panel of different innovators today to share with you. But really, first we have an announcement. I'm going to pass over to my colleague from the London office, Ben Ferrari, who heads our corporate relations, to share about a very exciting innovation that we've been working on for the home. Ben? Thank you.
Great, well, good morning. So, we're going to tell you about one of the activities we've been supporting, and I'll tell you why we supported it. We talk a lot about innovation, but the fact is we're not getting it done, it's not happening quick enough, and we're not getting things to scale in the way we need to. Now, I guess there are 2 or 3 ways you can respond to that. One is you can wait for the smart guys to do it for you and hope it all comes right. And there are certain narratives out there that we're a smart race, and you know what, just in time we are going to come up with the solutions. I personally don't think that's the right thing to do. Or we can take the view that, you know what, this is something we can all be part of. And that's why we've been working with Marblar. That's why we are interested in the notion of crowdsourcing. Because in the end, you know, we've all got to believe this is possible. And you believe it's possible if you feel part of it. We chose to work with Marblar because fundamentally they've got a platform which makes it really easy to be part of the big picture of thinking up ways of dealing with the problems we face. It's exciting, it's fun. Dan's going to tell you a little bit more about the platform, about the competition that we ran. So I'll pass over to Dan, and he'll tell you about the EarthHack challenge and how that went. Okay.
Thanks so much, Ben. So my name is Dan Perez. I'm the CEO of Marblar, and what we do is we take IP from a variety of settings, mainly in the university setting, because the dirty secret is about 95 to 99% of technologies out there never get commercialized, and especially in the university setting, which is really funded by you guys, by the taxpayer, by philanthropy, it's just sitting on a shelf collecting dust. It's a huge dirty secret. And so what we did with Marblar, so I'm actually a PhD student at Oxford in my other day job, is we realized that why not take this patented technology, this innovation that's already published out there in a patent, and put it out there for the world to say, given this laser, given this new piece of material, this is what I would do with it. This is the new products I would create with it, and not just leave it up to the universities to try to do it, because obviously, if 19 out of 20 or 99 out of 100 of the technologies are not doing anything, then that's just wasted potential. And so that's what we do with Marblar, and what we wanted to do with the climate group is say, how can we marriage this sort of approach to innovation with climate group's remit? And what we did with the EarthHack was to create a competition with a very simple premise. How could you recombine, repurpose, or otherwise commercialize existing technologies towards reducing carbon in the home? So take what's already out there, right, and just redirect it towards a new purpose that it might not have been originally intended for. And we opened this competition up to the world, and we're very happy to say over the course of the competition we had nearly 1,000 different people participate from 80 different countries, and we had 250 new product ideas that came out, and the winning product idea was RadFan, and I'm not going to go into it too much. I'm going to let Simon, who's here, to go into it, and it's a brilliant way of reducing the heat use in your home by more efficiently circulating the heat. And so if I could just bring Simon up, and so he's going to introduce this very deceptively simple product, and then we're going to give him his prize money and everything like that. Simon.
Hi, well, thanks Dan and the climate group. So to tell you what the problem is, first of all, is when you're sat on your sofa at home, about 60 to 70% of the heat in the room is actually above your head. You're heating the ceiling very effectively, and also heat is going out the window because we put radiators, particularly in Europe, underneath windows. So we took 2 low power fans and a plastic chassis with some nice magnets to keep it in place. You do plug it in, it uses about £2, $4, for a year's worth of electricity. It's got a smart thermostat in it, so you put it in, plug it on, and you forget about it. It runs itself, only runs when the radiator's running. And basically it's a very simple product that anybody can install. You don't need a plumber, you don't need an electrician, you don't need to tear the walls of your house off and stuff insulation inside and rebuild it afterwards. And so the upshot is that the testing we've done shows that it can increase the temperature at sofa height, where you're sat, where you care about, by about 2 degrees C. To equate that back to kind of carbon savings and energy, it'll reduce your heating bill, which in 90% of homes is the largest sort of burner of energy, by about 20%. That equates to about 1 to 1.5 tons of CO2 equivalent a year for a household. So if you went and installed, again, something very simple, in every house in the UK, you would save 20 to 30 million tons of CO2 equivalent every year, which is a pretty sizable amount for something that really has a very low upfront cost and investment. Where we are now is we're launched, we're commercialised, we've got about 2,000 customers who have these installed. Most of them coming back to say now their lounge is too warm, which is exactly what we wanted. They're turning the thermostat down, they're saving energy. But from a social housing point of view, a lot of these people are choosing whether to heat their homes or whether to eat food, and so they're having to kind of make that trade-off. So what we're looking for is people that control the product with, so housing associations, people in charge of social housing, anyone that basically is in charge of a lot of houses with a lot of radiators. We'd be really interested in talking to you to basically run a trial, and we've got funding to do that from the government's, UK government's Department of Energy and Climate Change. So thank you very much. We're really pleased to have won, and that's it.
Congratulations again. While design is obviously brilliant, it's really off-the-shelf components. They didn't have to you didn't need a PhD to develop this. These are the types of innovations we need to really spur because they're easy wins. They're very low-hanging fruit, and they're just sitting there waiting to be picked, right? And so if we could, try to repurpose more IP towards creating new products, especially towards lowering carbon, then the more the better. Thanks again, Simon.
And it would not be complete without a certificate, so congratulations.
Brilliant, thank you very much.
20-metre breaststroke, well done. So look, for us, this is what it's about. It doesn't have to be complicated to make a big difference. What I love about the RadFan is people that really need, to make a difference to the way they're living their lives can do this very simply. People for whom, the economics of running a home are really tight right now. It can make a difference. It can make a difference economically. It can make a difference to the environment. Now, of course, we can't pretend everything can be dealt with through innovations that have this simplicity, this appeal, this simplicity. We know that. But we're going to keep on working this angle. We're going to keep on working with Marblar. We're going to develop the EarthHack. We're going to get more ambitious. We're going to do it in a highly internationalized way. Because as I said, and what I'll finish on, is I don't want to sit there and wait for someone else to solve the problem. I want to be part of dealing with it, and I want to have fun while I'm doing that. And EarthHack delivers all those things to me, so I think it's fantastic. And on that note, I shall hand over to Jim and the first panel. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. Can everyone hear me? Can I ask the first panel to come up and take their places, please? No, we don't need you. So my name's Jim Walker. I'm Director of Programs at the Climate Group. And as Ben said, we are working increasingly in this area of sustainable innovation. This is me. Am I crackling? Crackling with wiring happening there. Somebody onto that crackling.
It's not us. It's not us.
It's not us. At the Climate Group, we work with a network of about 40 businesses, large-scale businesses, headquartered in different places around the world, and a network of state and regional governments. And part of our mission is to sort of promote leadership on climate change and understand what leadership means. And what we're seeing over the last 10 years that we've been working on this issue is that leadership is kind of stretching out. Actually, the leaders are doing more and more, and it's becoming more and more about innovation, about this theme of innovation. As well, we talk about innovation, it's become a little bit of a buzzword in the sustainability community. And we are really interested in looking at what are the challenges around innovation, how are companies that are doing this well doing it, and what else can we as a sort of universe of people working on advancing sustainability and corporate leadership, what can we do to support that process. So I'm really excited to have a great group of partners and speakers with us today. My co-moderator for the morning will be Josh Suskowitz, who's a partner at Innocyte. Innocyte is an innovation consultancy founded by Clay Christensen, who's a very well-respected innovation expert from Harvard University. And Josh is also a member of our Clean Revolution Advisory Boards. We've been working for a while. We're going to be collaborating a little bit more going forwards around this theme around innovation. So we do corporate leadership. Josh does innovation. We're hoping to work together to understand how we can push sustainable low-carbon innovation. Our first panel of speakers is a fantastic lineup from our partners and members. So Chris Librie, who's Senior Director of Sustainability at Hewlett-Packard. Steve Howard, who's a Chief Sustainability Officer at IKEA, former CEO of the Climate Group, joined IKEA a couple of years ago to run their sustainability initiatives, and is also a member of their Executive Management Board. Hannah Jones, Senior VP of Sustainability and Innovation at Nike. I think actually probably the first person to have sustainability and innovation in their job title, so it'll be interesting to hear from Hannah. I think she's had that title for a while now, to see how that's going at Nike. Bill Weil, who's a sustainability guru at Facebook, responsible for running Facebook's green programs, formerly Green Energy Czar at Google, so if anyone out there is
Good job titles.
negotiating cooler job titles, see Bill afterwards.
Yeah, there's a career ladder for all of these. Emperor Bill next.
So we've got half an hour for a panel discussion. We're then going to open up to the audience for 10 minutes of Q&A, and Josh and I are going to co-moderate. I just think just to get things going, I know we sort of try and avoid opening statements, but it'd be great if maybe each of you could say a little bit about how you see innovation working for your businesses at the moment, and giving some examples of the things that you're working on. Chris, can I ask you to kick off?
Is this working? Can you guys hear me? Great. Well, first of all, good morning. I'm glad that you're all suitably caffeinated, and apologies for the delay. I'm Chris Librie, Senior Director of Sustainability Programs at HP. And HP has a tremendous record of achievement and innovation in sustainability. We've focused for many years on transparency and also on improving the efficiency of our own operations. So reducing by 20% the impact of our facilities and our offices around the world over the last 5 years, and recommitting to another 20% reduction by 2020. But as we've continued to think about the new style of IT and where the information needs of the world are going, it's clear that information is exploding rapidly. And in just the last 2 years, more information has been generated than was generated in the years leading to 2000 in all of human history. So this is an enormous multiplication of the needs of the planet for information and information technology. We also recognize that information brings economic development, not only for us and our customers, but also for people around the world. Being connected means being efficient and being able to do business. So it's very clear to us that continuing as we are, continuing to meet those information needs without innovation is not sustainable. And so we've spent some time developing new server technology, and I brought props, much to the consternation of the folks at the airport, TSA. What exactly is that? This is actually this is a server. We call this Project Moonshot. This is an entire server, and if any of you are familiar with the size of a server, this is 80% less in mass, so we can get 45 of these in a standard server rack. In addition to that, this server is 89% more energy efficient, which is incredible. So we're saving space, we're saving energy. How do we do that? Well, it's a couple of things that are really fundamental. First of all, we started with a processor, which is based on the chipset that you find in your cell phones. And those processors are designed to run cooler and more efficient in the first place. But then we also looked beyond that, and we said, well, we could reduce the duplication that occurs in servers in terms of storage and networking and cooling. And so what you have here really is kind of almost like an insertable blade that goes into the chassis, and the chassis then shares all of the cooling and the networking and storage. So massive improvements in efficiency. To give you an idea of what that means, we are running HP.com, which is our global website, and has over 1 million hits a day. We're running that entire website on the equivalent of 12 60-watt light bulbs. So it's really a fundamental quantum change. If any of you were at the opening event yesterday, I was totally stimulated by Dr. Jim Kim. I thought he gave a great speech, and I was thinking about, are we peddling shorter showers? I don't think so. I think this is a really fundamental change in how we can share information and power the next developments of the internet. Thanks, Jim.
Thanks. Can everybody hear me without this? Can I? Big companies don't do innovation very well. I think it's a fair thing to say. So almost everything that inhibits innovation. So you have big, you're focused on business processes that secure you to do what you did last year a little bit better. And So even the most innovative companies, I think quite quickly, find it difficult to genuinely innovate. And I was struck, I was on the jury of the Postcode Lottery Green Challenge last weekend, and we were looking through the candidates there. One was a bit out there, and everybody sort of was like, nah. Everybody could think of the reasons why it couldn't work. And we had a discussion then, which I'd say was from stuff we'd done during the climate group time, where I said, actually, every big disruption, everything that's truly innovative, everybody's gone, no way, that's not going to work. And it's usually the smartest, best paid people who've gone, no way, it's not going to work. And I think the same thing happens in big business. People are so focused, 100% busy, how do you find the space? So the first thing you have to do is you have to lead innovation and mandate it and really push it very hard, I think. So we set up a separate team focused on sustainability innovation, and are we harvesting low-hanging fruit? I think we're probably doing that. I don't know if is it innovative to scale what's out there? I think it is, probably. I think so. The honest thing that what we'll do in IKEA, we're not going to have 500 PhDs. I think we've got these 2 of us in the business. I think as far as I'm aware of, we can keep count. It's easy to keep count. We're not going to have 500 PhDs, but what we can do is help scale things if you go and hunt them down and source them. And this is something we've done together, which I think is a good one in collaboration. Hannah's team came to us with an investment they've made in Daiku, which is a waterless dyeing company, which you might want to talk about more, I don't know. But, and so that was great to have that collaboration where we're not competing. We both want to see a much, much more sustainable textile industry. So this is where we can co-invest in something where we're not competing, we can scale that. So we've got a clean tech VC. But I'm pouring some cold water on this. Corporate VCs are hard work. Again, because you invest in something that, if it's going to be good, it's going to compete with your business. So everybody inside the business says, why would you possibly want to invest in that? And then the corporate time frame, which is on 3-year planning cycles, versus the startup planning. The startup guy, next week's a long time away if you're a startup. Whereas next week's, no, you're booked up for 6 months if you're in the corporate world. So these things are really hard to do. And I think even the big companies that do innovation well, you have to be prepared to invest in it, you have to mandate it for a top and a drive-through business. I'm just going to talk about a couple of things that we have done that are more in the innovation space of it's not even as complicated as RadFan. I don't know if me waving this around is causing the noise. No. We've looked at our... So you can all me.
It's the moderation catalog.
Okay, I'll be very quick. If you look at...
Okay, it's a good joke.
If you look at furniture, and as we do a lot in IKEA, then you think of what do you need to make something, and then be ruthless in terms of efficiency. And if you think of a door, big doors, they don't need to be solid wood. Solid wood's grossly inefficient. Your yield from a log is really poor. You can take them to particle board, and that can double your yield. Or you can go to board on frame, where you have high-density fibre board with a little frame. Or then you can go to board on stiles, which are little tiny bits of wood, structural timber, and then have a honeycomb of paper in the middle. So we've looked at every item in our range, and if you think big doors like this, you really don't want it to be solid wood. You want it to be a door. You want it to be opaque. You want it to be easy to open and long-lasting. So you need certain structural properties and no more. And most doors are horribly over-engineered with solid wood. So you dematerialize them. And we've actually looked through what does this mean, and we now think that by 2020 we could meet 30% more people just by the simple progression of going from solid wood to particle board to board on fibre to board on stiles. And that's actually, it's big innovation. And the last thing I mentioned yesterday is you can flat pack a sofa. Flat pack a sofa, is that innovative? Well, actually it is innovative. If that means you can then quadruple the amount of sofas you can ship in a container. And I think when that's why I liked the sort of the crowdsourcing approach, and I like the simplicity of the solutions on some things, is we'll have fantastic breakthroughs in brilliantly smart technology, and we'll have a flat pack sofa. But whatever you do, it has to be led and mandated and driven through the business.
Yeah, so I think our epiphany as a company was actually started around SF6, which those of you familiar with gases know that's not a very nice gas. And before it was known that it wasn't a very nice gas, we used to use it in our airbags, which, as you probably do know, also was kind of like one of our huge breakthroughs in our business. So in the early 90s, we began to realize that we really needed to exit SF6, and we needed to do it without demolishing our entire business. And we set about 10 years of R&D to understand how could we replace the SF6 and still give the athlete an airbag that would perform to their needs. And everybody said it couldn't be done. And meanwhile, we were trying to reduce on all fronts, but we just couldn't do it. Anyway, 10 years later, and a bunch of R&D, not only did we replace SF6 with nitrogen, but in doing so, it forced us to innovate the actual way in which we created the airbag, which led to performance-enhancing technology that has radically transformed how we think about the airbag and how we actually make shoes. And so the story behind that is that, first of all, it reduced our carbon footprint by 80%, 80. And now what we're doing is picking off the remaining 20%, which is incredibly hard. But so the story behind that is that incrementalism is important if you can scale it. But sometimes the way to think about life is to look sideways and think about how you simply change the question. And what we realized as well was that all of our innovation team at Nike, which was charged with how do you innovate great new products, how do you think about the athlete's performance, ultimately every innovator loves constraints and they love a challenge. You know, Frank Gehry, the architect, said, give me a timeline and a budget and I'll do my best building. and so we began to think about how could sustainability be a lens through which as a company we viewed innovation. So that's been part of our journey. Just recently, that journey led to us completely taking the sustainability team and putting it into the innovation team. Nike's innovation goals are its sustainability goals, which are its innovation goals. They're not distinct, they are the same. And we now run our sustainability function as we would run an innovation portfolio. So I think about our work as a portfolio of innovation. I think about incremental, disruptive innovation. I think about business model innovation. I think about industry and system change innovation. And we think about it as an innovation pipeline. We think about how much have we got in our explore, how much have we got prototyping, and how well are we doing in getting adoption and scaling. And all of it is difficult, and you need to think of it as a portfolio. But when you change the lens on sustainability and you turn it into a new challenge for innovators, what you start to unleash are business and sustainability solutions without compromise, but that potentially can unlock new markets and new value. And I think that is really where, for us, that's the bet we're taking. The bet we're taking is, if you even just look at what remains of our carbon footprint, ultimately it comes down to percentages. 33% of our remaining carbon footprint sits in materials manufacturers. Now, we don't own those manufacturers. They're pretty distant from us. Half the time, we don't even have a relationship with them. What am I going to do? I'm going to go into 2,500 vendors around the world and try and incrementally reduce their footprint? Well, you go in and you look at the problem and you realize that most of the carbon and the energy is to do with the boilers, because so much water is being used in things like dyeing. So instead of trying to go after lots of small incremental gains, this is the partnership we just talked about, we went out and looked for startup technology that could just simply eliminate the use of water from materials manufacturing. And if we can scale DICO, which we will scale DICO, and if anyone here has a procurement arm into materials vendors, put your hand up and come and work with us, we can change the entire materials industry. And if we can do that, we're talking massive scale. So I think our role is to, someone once said to me, you need to run an alien protection plan for innovators. I think our role is to protect the innovators and take them as fast as we can to scale.
3 tough acts to follow. And you said that the TSA folks are a little, nonplussed by your prop. We were talking in the green room about he brought a prop, you brought a prop. I was saying I didn't bring a prop, which is really, Hannah brought props. She wore props.
Hannah always wears her props.
Then I realized all of you, I'm from Facebook, all of you, most of you have my prop in your pocket. So thank you. I think everything you guys said is absolutely true. I think we're doing some of that kind of stuff. We're a much younger company at a very different stage in our evolution. A lot of our focus has been on our infrastructure, our data centers, our servers, as well as our office buildings and so on. But most of our carbon footprint is in our operational infrastructure that runs Facebook. Some of it's in our supply chain. And so several years ago, we embarked on what I think I would describe as a disruptive approach to our business, which was we're going to stop leasing data centers. We're going to stop buying commodity servers that are just whatever the vendors offer, including HP. And we're going to look at how to design both the servers and the data centers to reduce the energy consumed and reduce their cost. But the big innovation, others have done this before, so Google, where I was for a number of years, went through a similar process 8, 9 years ago, similar thought process. The thing that was really innovative about what Facebook did was that it didn't do it itself. It didn't hire 1,000 PhDs to design and build these things. Rather, it worked with partners like HP and others in the industry. And in fact, it now 2.5 years ago, I think, made the decision to open source those designs and to try to build a collaborative ecosystem around a new class of designs for both servers and data centers so that we can leverage all the smart people out there. But in addition, everyone else can benefit. It's not just our innovation. It's not just our IP. It's something that helps our business, but it's not something that is critical as a competitive advantage to our business. And in fact, we think we get more advantage by working with our vendors, partners, suppliers, as well as everyone else out there who might want to take part in this. So I'd say that if I had to pick one word for the major innovation and how we've approached that part of our business, it's been around collaboration and around opening up the designs and the benefits of these new designs. And there are newer designs that perhaps are even better, and we want to take advantage of those. So we're not, we're agnostic as to where the ideas come from. But the key is to save energy, to save materials, and to save money. The designs that we introduced 2.5 years ago, we estimated that those designs at that point were saving 38% of the energy, so cutting our energy use by 38%, and reducing our cost by 24%. So CapEx and OpEx both lower, energy way lower. And so it's a win-win, and a win for the environment. The other thing that we've been working on, which has been slower and I think is in some ways more complicated, it's less under our control. Long term, I think the potential for impact is much greater, is we have a platform that reaches over 1 billion people. It's a platform that others use to reach those people and engage with those people. And our hypothesis is that for many of the problems, sustainability-related problems that people are trying to solve, platforms like Facebook can be used to drive bigger, more impactful, farther-reaching solutions than you would get otherwise, by engaging people in a conversation and engaging people together with their social networks. So we've partnered with companies like O-Power. We've been talking to a number of companies in the solar space, in the EV space, so energy efficiency, new technologies like solar and EVs, a number of other areas where people are trying to advance sustainability on one front or another, where engaging their customers, if you will, in a conversation both between the company or organization and those people, but also among those customers, we think can drive potentially much more impact. So we've been working with a number of companies and organizations to try to figure out what are the kinds of techniques that actually will engage people and drive real impact. I think we're beginning to see some small results, I hope over the next few years to see some really big results.
Great, well thank you. Those were all, I think, terrific introductions, lots of really fascinating innovation beginning to occur. And one thing I noted was each panelist talked about different approaches to innovation. So some of it is in-house R&D, some of it is collaboration and open innovation, some of it is integrating innovation functions with sustainability functions. So there's actually innovation in the process of innovation, which I think is really important and something that maybe we can expound more on. Well, one thing though that I'd like to ask specifically to start is, Steve, you spoke quite eloquently, I think, about the challenges of innovation inside of a big company. And anyone who's been in or around big companies in the room can certainly relate, I think, on a visceral level to some of those challenges. I'd actually like to turn it around though. What, Steve, and then everyone else, if you could reflect as well, what are the unique advantages of being part of a big company? What are the catalytic capabilities that only companies like HP or Nike or IKEA or Facebook can bring to bear, and therefore can contribute uniquely to the challenge that we all face?
I'll start. Scale and capital have got to be two really. And like if we want to do, well, no, okay. So if we want to do board on styles, this sort of funky furniture, then we can commission ourselves and give ourselves an order for 15 million coffee tables, and then we can build a factory to the specifications to supply 15 million, and then we can invest with our own money. And I think there's not many companies can do that, and it's the same thing that we're all in the place that we really want to back something, you can back it big. And I think that's an incredible opportunity for us to do it. And make things, you can make things happen on a grand scale. The other thing we've just done is, it's not exciting unless you're in the logistics space, but it's really exciting if you're in logistics, but is to eliminate wooden pallets. And that's because we've got the scale. We're moving 44 million cubic meters of stuff around. And you realise that's a lot of pallets. It's a lot of pallets. And actually, the amount of pallets you ship around and the energy, it's so inefficient. So we've gone for plastic loading ledges and paper pallets. All the paper pallets get recycled. We've done full LCAs on it. It's a massive saving for the business in terms of emissions and money to do it. But then you have to put a setup in place to completely change your logistics. It sounds like if you weren't in business, you think, that's easy. Just you're going from pallets to different types of pallets, and you have to redesign the forklifts to support it. There's so many things you have to do to drive that setup through. But you can make choices in business, and in big business, and then you've got the scale to actually follow it through and transform the whole supply chain.
If I may, I think that's a great observation, and I like the way that you reframe the question, because I was thinking about it as a challenge too. We are an engineering-driven company, and facts matter. And that was a challenge in a way because we wanted to measure our carbon footprint. So building on some of the themes that have been touched on, particularly by Hannah, having those data, doing our carbon footprint, and getting our collaborators within the company to work with us and to understand where the hotspots were and how we could address them, unleashed a tremendous amount of energy. So it was getting those facts in place and doing the due diligence to really understand what our impacts are as a company. Having those data verified by Ernst & Young gave them incredible credibility within the organization. And then we were able to go back to a very engineering-driven culture and be able to say, these are the opportunities we have to improve the efficiency of our products, which are 60% of our footprint. These are the opportunities we have to approach the supply chain, as Hannah mentioned, which is 36% of our footprint. And the 4% of our footprint in our operations, which is what we've been working on all these years, it's still important, but actually, it's only 4% of the total footprint. There's tremendous opportunities outside. And that was a really galvanizing moment for the organization to be able to see what those opportunities could be. Just yesterday, we announced a supply chain goal for the very first time. I think it's the first in the IT industry to reduce our supply chain footprint in tier 1 suppliers by 20%. The impact of that 20% reduction is 2 million metric tons. It's a quantum leap over the metric tons that we save in our operations. So, it's just by unlocking that kind of engineering-based mentality, that fact-based culture that we have at HP, that we've been able to really start to tap into significant increments in terms of what we can do in innovation.
It's really actually, I can just butt in a little bit, just to build on that a little bit. It's interesting that just on culture, I think the 4 companies that you represent speak very strong cultures, but very, very different cultures as well. And yet you're all doing innovation in a very interesting way. I mean, it's just, I think it is from having talked to some of you, the way that they're very strong cultures, but actually quite different. And so is culture important to innovation, or is it something else?
Yeah, culture eats strategy for lunch, I think someone once said. I don't know who says that. So, yeah, culture is critical. If you don't have a culture that nurtures and protects the innovation teams, you just go home. I mean, it's so easy to kill an innovation team. You know, they're dreamers, they're asking incredibly crazy questions, they're off looking for the crazy answers. They need to love failing. You know, innovators have to be given permission to fail 100 times because the 101th time is the brilliant solution. None of that works in a mainstream commercial business that's just thinking about incremental commercial gains on an organic growth model. So culture is at the heart of it. You know, we're lucky. Our CEO has been with us for 30 years at Nike. He grew up in design and innovation. Our chairman, Phil Knight, is a maverick. You know, in the board meeting that we had, when I talked to him about us changing the focus of the team from risk to innovation, he leant back in his chair with his dark glasses and said, "I think you're crazy, but I love it. Go for it." You know, you have to give permission to take risk, and your appetite for risk has to be greater. And all those things in many companies get squashed from day one. And I think, therefore, yeah, I don't think it's a surprise that you see these strong cultures kind of going with the appetite for innovation.
Yeah. No, I would agree. I think culture is vital, and I think you said you need innovators who love to fail. Hopefully, they like to actually succeed occasionally
well,
too.
Occasionally too, that helps.
And they need permission to fail. They also need to be rewarded.
Yes.
I think one of the really hard things around innovation is figuring out how to reward people, not disincentivize them from taking risks, right? And I think that's one of the things as companies grow and they get more risk averse because they've got this huge installed business that they need to protect and maintain, it's very easy to fall away from them.
Yeah.
The other thing I think that from a cultural point of view, and actually this is where I would say in some ways IKEA and Facebook are remarkably similar. We are each in some ways vertically integrated. And that allows us to pursue innovations. It frees people to think about innovations that are much more holistic across the operation. So you talked about, well, we're going to redesign the pallets. That means we need to redesign the forklifts. Well, if you were shipping furniture to Walmart, it's Walmart's forklifts, or it's all the various warehouses and the retailers in the distribution chain. It's their distribution infrastructure, not yours. You could do it, but you probably wouldn't go there. You wouldn't think of doing it because it would be a much bigger, more disruptive innovation that cut across many organizations. But when you are more vertically integrated, it allows you to think more holistically, and that's part of what allowed us to get where we did with our servers and data centers. Because we didn't say, well, here are the silos in the industry. We can innovate within this one and within this one, but the boundaries between them are fixed. We could say, let's actually look across them, and we could find approaches that others wouldn't go after. And now those can begin to percolate through the industry. And I think the thing that honestly I don't know the answer to, but that I think that large organizations need to think about is how do you encourage and enable that kind of innovation that really is more holistic, that goes beyond the boundaries of the organization.
And if I can jump in there, I think one of the things that we've seen is, so growing up as a sustainability team, our job was to look at systems, and our job was to look holistically at the business because we were being held accountable for that. Whereas a lot of the time in the functions of the business, they would be looking at it through their silos of, I'm running this category, or I'm running this bit of the supply chain, or here I am over here. And so actually the gift of the sustainability team, ironically, to innovation at Nike has been to think about system change and to come with this very holistic view. And then in addition of that, to come with a background and a history of partnerships. And so one of the things that we've also been looking at as part of the innovation agenda is, I always think about innovation. Innovation sits in the shadows between the silos. And so sustainability forces you to look in the shadows and to look and turn that into an amazing new innovation opportunity that in the silos people wouldn't have found. And I think that's a really important contribution that sustainability can make to innovation.
Terrific. Lots of great insight and anecdotes. I could have 100 more questions for you guys, but actually we'd love to open it up to the floor. So, yes.
Hi, Will Brent from Weber Shandwick. I think there's a fundamental tension between what we're talking about here today, innovation, and the nature of your companies, which at the end of the day, whether it's directly or indirectly, is to sell more stuff. What role does innovation have for your companies in trying to address that question? Can you use innovation to reduce consumption, yet still be a viable business as a publicly
Steve
traded
and I
company?
were jumping and we love this question.
Thank you. I get asked that question a lot. I think it's a really valid question, actually. Let's say 3 billion extra consumers by 2030, people with hopes and aspirations for their families needing stuff. So there's a stuff challenge, and most people want, and actually you could say deserve, more stuff than they have today, most people in the world. And some of us probably have way too much stuff, but there's not many of us with the way too much stuff. So the question is, how do we provide goods in a totally sustainable way? And I think that's our challenge to do that. And then you want to ensure durability fit for purpose. So we put challenges into business. Durability fit for purpose. We've had debates about how long should a toilet brush last. There is a gender divide. I think if we probably, I'm really mystified in that. I don't know why there is on that, because I think quite a long life for a toilet brush. And some members of the audience do not agree with me. So, anyway, but you've got to get down to that level of specific question. We've moved on to pots and pans with a 25-year guarantee, which is probably right. So it's the durability, the recyclability, the sustainable raw materials, the powering your energy with renewable energy, the breathtakingly efficient logistics, the reverse logistics from the customer's home, the how customers access you as a business, thinking about every element of your entire value chain in a closed loop system and saying, that's the future for us, where are the gaps today? And then it's framing the innovation challenges around those gaps. And I think, if we don't do that as businesses, actually we're on camera, aren't we? We're all screwed, That's and the honest truth, because people will want stuff.
You don't have a mic, so the camera can't.
Yeah, you can't hear me. People.
Is there a day when you can sell less and still be a viable business?
I think you can dematerialize what you sell.
You can dematerialize it,
Yeah.
and I think you can move into services. And when we think about it, we've scanned it and said, okay, there are going to be multiple roadmaps and pathways, and we'll see which ones come out of there. But actually, it starts with materials. It sounds really basic. We all here this week talking about climate change and what we need to do, and that's kind of all policy wonk stuff and everything. But if you boil it down to what we could do fundamentally to change the world, it would be that we decouple from scarce resources all of our growth, and we look at materials and we say we're going to change the world's palette of materials to be a sustainable set of materials. And I think that if you start with materials and you think about radical new ways of creating materials, of which we have Eben here who's going to give you an example later, then it also provides you answers for the end of life, for how you then create a closed loop economy and how you think about services. We're thinking about not just selling stuff, but how do you also provide experiences and services as part of your revenue model. And I think what we're going to see is amazing diversification. I think we're going to see lots of business model innovation happening. And the great thing about it is it's getting competitive. And what I love about it is that by shaping this conversation to be one about innovation, is what we're starting to see is sustainability used to be pre-competitive all across the world. And now a lot of what we're all doing is competitive. And I think that's an amazing market pull that will help us go to scale.
I would just add on the HP and maybe Facebook front, replace the word stuff with information. And we want to get information to more and more people as well. And we want to do that more sustainably. I mean, it's all about bringing economic development and opportunity to people. If we don't do that, then we don't have a chance really to bring the next tranche of the middle class globally to the right level.
Steve said there are several billion people who aspire to deserve more stuff, more prosperity, and that includes physical stuff, it includes information, it includes being part of the knowledge economy, but we need to do that sustainably.
All right, one more question in the back.
Innovation, as you said, is about being disruptive, and I think just about everybody in this room is being disruptive in one way or another. And being disruptive means getting people to change. And change is not an easy thing. And again, if we look at a triangle in terms of awareness on this subject, we're probably at the very, very peak. And then there's this massive triangle below us of people that have lower levels of awareness and desire for action. And my question is how to mobilize. So, and I think it's very interesting that you put sustainability along with innovation. It seems like at IKEA you've done the same thing. Do you have any insights on how to mobilize, on how to get the detractors? Because one subject that hasn't come up today are all those people who are opposed to change because of disruption, because of them losing whatever they may think is important, including their own power. How do you deal with those detractors in an organization? And what are your thoughts about taking this to the broader part of the triangle and getting people to see the light?
You kill them off, I don't know. No,
I'm so glad you said that.
I think you have to get everybody a win. I think everybody has to win in this, and I think you got to put the hubris out of the ego and the not invented here piece out of the way. And we in the team, we often say we know we're winning when someone else has decided it's their idea and that they're going to take it to scale. And I think one of the big things that we debated a great deal in the company was sustainability versus performance. And we are crystal clear that what we put out into the market will never compromise performance and will not compromise sustainability. So it has to be a win-win. And so if you take the example of the Flyknit shoe that we brought out at the Olympics a year ago, our fingerprints were on that as a team, but it was a company win. And it wasn't a win because it was sustainable, although actually it absolutely was sustainable. It was a win because athletes won golds in marathons wearing those shoes. And so I think what we owe is positioning sustainability as a win for the market, a win for the company, a win for teams. And then those trade-offs become much easier to navigate. And there are always complex conversations, but I think if you have that end goal of creating value, it makes it a lot easier.
We've seen the exact same thing internally in terms of my sustainability team working with our hardware design team, the ones who design the servers and the storage infrastructure and so on, and the data center design team. That, first of all, we can't compromise performance. There's certain functional needs, performance needs that are vital to actually run the business. And getting them to understand that our goal is not to take shorter showers or have warm beer, but to actually provide the performance, but to do it in a more sustainable way, often in a way that actually saves the company money or has other benefits, so that it is a win for everybody. I think that's true internally. I think that's true. I think it seemed to me you were alluding to the larger question of societally, how do we deal with it? The same issue, and I think the same thing is true to some extent. I think actually attitudes are shifting in the last year. I think it doesn't hurt to have a crisis or two like Hurricane Sandy to open people's eyes. But we also have to get away from the fear and the doom and gloom and the sacrifice to let's figure out how to solve these problems and make it a win for everybody.
I think there's something around, we do something which I haven't done before in this, I've not used this word in IKEA, I would recommend it though, it's called purposing. And so on anything that we do, like the range development, it's all purposing, and you go back to what's the business idea, what's the vision of the business, and really express that. So with sustainability, we went back and really lined it up with, who are the people in IKEA, where does IKEA come from, who are our customers, and how do we make sustainability really deeply part of that, so everybody in the business understands why them, why us, why are we doing this. And that was a really quite an involved exercise, but it paid dividends. So I actually don't have any dissenting voices out of 140,000 people to my face. And hopefully there's none behind my back either, but I don't think so. Overall, it's a how do we get this done challenge. And then we have our, I mean, innovation sounds smart, doesn't it? If you work for an innovation consultancy, you must be smarter than everybody else. I think so. The people we've got with innovation in job titles, our sustainable innovation team, my conversation with them was you've got to be the most humble people in the business. You never ever suggest to colleagues that somehow you know something they don't, because they're driving the commercial success of the business. And what our job is to help simplify their job and to work together in partnership with them to get that done. And I think that's really important. And celebrate successes. I think that's sort of what you said about the win. You've got to celebrate successes wherever they are and thank people for what they do. It's just building a positive corporate culture. And I think driving change in that way, it can be very exciting for everybody. People are excited and motivated behind it.
I would just pick up on the thought of culture. And when you have a sustainability-minded culture, it builds on itself. And so HP's been around. We're going to celebrate our 75th anniversary next year. And the founders had very thought-provoking, very future-seeing views about sustainability, Bill and Dave. And they spoke about that from the very beginning. And so, it's deeply embedded in the organization. We still have the challenge of explaining what's the business value. But we have that to rely back on, that our company has lasted as long as it has because of that focus on sustainability throughout its history. So I think you don't have to have a 75-year history. Not all of us up here do. But if you're building that kind of a culture, then it starts to build on itself, and it gives you a foundation to go forward with.
That's great. That was a fantastic whirlwind tour of innovation within large companies. At the club, we were very excited about the work that you guys are doing. I think there's some really great insights for the audience there. I really like the idea of some culture eating strategy for lunch. And,
I had to eat it for breakfast because it's
breakfast,
even more
actually,
aggressive.
Especially if it has
So and I think there's something there about sort of the combination of, vision and being bold and risky, but also being humble as well. And I think there's a culture, I think, is coming across as a very strong theme. You can have quite diverse cultures, but there's some uniformity there around really having clear vision and delivery around it. I'd like to have a round of applause for our